Welcome to the Street Outreach Training Addendum. Prior to this course, you should have viewed the HMIS Introductory Series and the Case Management Series. The Outreach Training only covers information that is unique to outreach and not the entire workflow in detail. If you have any questions about the basic workflow, you will need to reference the Introductory and Case Management Series. Training items we will cover are going to be the Outreach Universal Engagement Assessment, the Current Living Situation Subassessment, Contacts, Recording Latitude and Longitude, City of First Contact, Date of Engagement, Interim Updates, and Exit from Street Outreach. Let's begin. Before we begin entering data, we want to make sure that we are in the correct Enter Data As mode. I will go ahead and change mine to my Street Outreach project. Next, I will go to my client's profile. As usual, you will update households if the client is a part of a household. Next, you will add an ROI. This is a mandatory step for Balance of State users. For Balance of State users, remember if the ROI is not electronically added on the ROI tab, your data will not be shared with anyone in HMIS. For Maricopa users, this step is not required but is encouraged. So I'll go ahead and add the ROI by clicking on the Add Release of Information button. I'll say my client did grant sharing. And I'm going to be backdating all of my data for the training purposes. I'm going to say this was back in May of 2022. And Balance of State ROIs expire after a year. So I will go ahead and put the end date for a year out. And then save release of information. Next, we will go to the Entry Exit tab to add an entry for our client. We are going to click on the Add Entry Exit button. And the type is going to be HUD, which is the case for most projects. Project start date. Again, I'm going to be backdating my data for training purposes. But note, for Street Outreach, the project start date is the date of first contact with the client. So I'm going to say I first met with my client, again, on May 1st, 2022. Now we will click Save and Continue. You will see all assessments associated with your project listed under Entry Assessment, under the Entry Assessment section. The order of the assessments may be different because this is based on the agency's preference. You will generally work left to right to complete the assessments. The first assessment we will complete is the UDE assessment. I'm not going to cover this in detail since this assessment is covered in our introductory series. One important note for outreach projects is that UDEs are not required until the client has a date of engagement. Reporting on data quality for street outreach projects is limited to clients with a date of engagement. I will go ahead and answer a few questions now so we can move on to the next assessment. And if a client did not want to answer the questions, you would go ahead and select client refused. And I'm going to say those are all the questions that the client would answer. And I'm going to go down and click on save. Now I'll scroll back up. And then we'll move on to our next assessment, which is the Outreach Universal Engagement Assessment. Again, we do recognize clients may be hesitant to give outreach workers information on the first interaction, so please complete the assessments as much as possible. The first part of the Universal Outreach Engagement Assessment is the Current Living Situation Sub-Assessment. You must add a contact, current living situation, and latitude and longitude every time you meet with a client. Contacts that require the collection of the current living situation include activities such as a conversation between a street outreach staff and a client about the client's well-being or needs, an office visit to discuss their housing plan, or a referral to another community service where a conversation with the client occurred as the referral was being made. So to complete the sub-assessment, we're going to click on this Add button. And then we will complete the following fields as they apply to us. The start date. The start date is going to default to the day that you're entering the assessment into HMIS. Do not change this field. The date of contact. This will be the same as the start date. The current living situation. You will choose from this drop-down list where the client is currently residing. And there are multiple situations that the client could be residing. So there are homeless situations, institutional situations, temporary and permanent housing situations, or other situation. For my client, I'm going to say they are in a homeless situation. And then the next field says if other specified. So if you had chosen an other situation, you would put those details here. Location details, you may enter additional information about the client's location. And then living situation verified by, this field is for coordinated entry projects only and does not apply to the street outreach workflow. Next, we have the street outreach latitude and longitude. Part of the street outreach workflow is adding the latitude and longitude for the location where you met with the client. You will use Google Maps in order to get the latitude and longitude for the location. I'll go ahead and go into Google Maps now. And what you would do is drop a pin for the location where you met the client. And then you will copy and paste the latitude and longitude. In the browser, the latitude and longitude will show up in the website address bar. So I'll copy, and then I will paste. And you're going to copy the latitude and longitude to the 5th decimal place. Now add the cross streets. You will not use any commas in this field. Next, if you had chosen a current living situation that fell under an institutional situation or a temporary and permanent housing situation, you would complete these follow-up questions here. Since my situation was a homeless situation, we will not be completing these follow-up questions. Next, we would go ahead and click on Save. And now we have our contact and current living situation added on the assessment. The next field says City of First Contact. This is the city where you had your first contact with the client. For my client, I'm going to say the city of first contact was Chandler. Next, date of engagement. The date of engagement is the date on which an interactive client relationship results in a deliberate client assessment or beginning of a case plan. It may be on or after the project start date and prior to the project exit. Right now, I'm not going to add a date of engagement. I'm going to say that my client was not interested in getting a case manager or being assessed, so I will leave the date of engagement blank for now. The Universal Engagement Assessment also includes the program data elements, which include the monthly income, non-cash benefits, health insurance, and disability, and also the highest level of education attained and domestic violence questions. I will not be covering these elements in detail. If you have questions about these elements, please reference our introductory training. And also please note for outreach, these elements are not required until there is a date of engagement, but we do encourage users to fill out the elements as best as possible, even if there is no date of engagement. I'm going to answer some of these questions so we can move on with the training. Okay, now that we have answered as much as possible, we are going to go ahead and click on Save to save our answers. And then we'll scroll back up. And your project may have a custom assessment. You would go ahead and complete that now. And then since all the assessments are complete, we're going to go ahead and select Save and Exit. Now we will go over interim updates. Outreach workers must complete an interim update each time they meet with a client after the client's entry. This is so a contact, current living situation, and the latitude and longitude can be recorded. Updates also keep your client active in the system, and you are also able to add the date of engagement and update any UDEs or program data elements for accuracy. So to add an interim update, we're going to click on this document icon that is under Interms. And then we will click on Add Interim Review. And the interim review type is going to be Update. And then the review date is going to be the date that you met with the client. And again, I'm backdating my dates here for the training. So I'm going to say I met with a client a couple weeks later on May 30th. Once we have completed those fields, we will go ahead and select Save and Continue. And the first assessment we'll complete this time is going to be the Outreach Universal Engagement Assessment. And we will complete the current living situation sub-assessment as we did before. So again, we'll click on Add. And the start date is going to default to when we're inputting the information in HMIS. The contact date is going to be the same as the start date. And we'll choose the current living situation. And then we will complete the latitude and longitude again. We'll go back to Google Maps, drop the pin, and then copy the latitude and longitude to the 5th decimal place. And then we will add the cross streets. Now we will click Save, and we have our update here. On this contact, I'll say that my client did want to come up with a housing plan, wants to be case managed, so I'll go ahead and add my date of engagement for May 30th. So since there is a date of engagement, again, all universal data elements and program specific data elements should be reviewed for completeness and accuracy on this date of engagement. So we'll go ahead and go back to the UDE assessment and update these fields again for accuracy. And so I'm updating the date of birth, the primary race, ethnicity. We'll update gender. And then we'll update, does the client have a disabling condition? We'll put in the zip code of last permanent address. If the client wasn't sure, there's a list here of general zip codes that you can add. And then we'll enter the eviction questions, and then the client prior residence questions. And I'll go ahead and just update that information for now so we can move on. So since I have all that information updated, I'm going to select save and then scroll back up. And then again, we'll update the program data elements here: the monthly income, non-cash benefits, insurance, and disabilities. And again, if you did have questions about these elements, please reference our introductory series. Okay, so all of our UDEs are updated and our program elements are updated. We're going to go ahead and select save and exit. And now we have our update completed for the client. Now we will complete an exit for the client. In a street outreach project, clients may be exited when the outreach staff has been unable to locate the client for an extended period of time and there are no recorded contacts for the client. In both Maricopa and Balance of State, this period of time is 90 days or longer. So if you haven't had any contact with your client in 90 days or longer, you would exit them. In addition, the client may be exited upon entering another project type, finding housing, engaging with another street outreach project, or passing away. In those cases, the client would be exited as of the date of the last contact recorded in the current living situation subassessment. So I'm going to go ahead and exit my client, and I'm going to say it was due to having no contact for 90 days or more. So we would need to find out when the last contact was made because that would be our exit date for the client. So we would click on the interim update, the little paper icon, and then we see here that the last contact was May 30th. So this will be our client's exit date. So to add the exit, we'll go ahead and click on this pencil icon under exit date. And then again, we're going to backdate it to the date of the last contact. And the reason for leaving, we can select unknown disappeared. And destination is going to be no exit interview completed. And then we will select save and continue. And since we are not able to speak with the client and update any information at exit, we would just scroll down and click Save and Exit. This concludes the Street Outreach Training Addendum. If you have any questions about this topic, please call the help desk at 602-908-3605 or submit a ticket through our ticketing portal at our website.